Aravind Adiga's The White Tiger is quite possibly one of the most eye-opening novels to the sufferings of the lower class in a corrupt post-colonial country. During the colonial era, the British established factories and created jobs for the Indian people. However, they imposed a strict system that depended on the wealth of the empire.
When the British rule ended, the governmental construct they had introduced remained. However, there was no longer a vast pile of finances available to support the system. With the disappearance of the empire's wealth came the vanishing of law and order, which undoubtedly ended up shaping India's development as an independent country.
In The White Tiger by Aravind Adiga, colonialism is the prominent factor that has negatively impacted Indian society, introducing corruption, increasing crime, and widening the class divide in the hierarchical construct.
When the British were in power, government officials were paid generous wages, keeping the political system in check. After the British Raj, public sector workers kept a great deal of their power, yet got paid very little. The result was them skimming money and taking bribes, rendering the political system corrupt beyond comprehension. Politicians in the Indian government were paid so poorly that they were almost forced to go looking for extra income.
For example, in The White Tiger, Mr. Shok, the protagonist's master, would regularly hand out bribes to various ministers in order to maintain his illegal coal trading business. Side deals like these were very normal. One can only imagine all the manipulation, blackmail, and bribery that influenced the decisions of the nation.
Another example from The White Tiger is a dysfunctional Indian political system that is subject to corrupt and rigged elections. A sovereign leader who calls himself the Great Socialist advocates for equality on behalf of the lower class, yet remains in power under this false pretext and benefits from the sufferings of his people. Small villages across India would be regularly bought out for votes, and any individual opposed to this would be instantly silenced. After the British left, there were no regulations or higher powers to stop these happenings, and very quickly, a brutal dictatorial system arose under the name of a democracy.
While the British were in power, their imposed laws and values were strictly enforced. However, in the absence of the ruling party, the controlling mechanisms of society became blurred, giving birth to chaos and corruption in all levels of everyday Indian life. The corruption began in the upper class. Masters manipulated and abused their servants on a daily basis, and as a result, this corruption quickly spread to the lower class as well. This promoted crime, increased murder, theft, and rebellion against the upper class, all as a result of colonial influence.
In the novel, the protagonist Balram reflects this idea. He evolves from Munna, the innocent schoolboy, son of a rickshaw puller, to Ashok Sharma, the corrupt entrepreneur who murdered his master and bribes police officers. The constant presence of corruption, deceit, and exploitation in the workings of the upper class influenced many of the individuals who served these people.
The masters would abuse society, and consequently, the servants would adopt their habits and secretly exploit them. Cheating, stealing, and even murder was a regular occurrence in society. Balram, the protagonist in the novel, started out as an honest and loyal servant. However, the influence of his master quickly turned him into a sly tiger who eventually steals from and murders his employer.
The increased presence of corruption in Indian society ensured the lower class peoples remained locked in their place as slaves to the powerful landlords, politicians, and government officials who abused the post-colonial version of India. The analogy given by Aravind Adiga in The White Tiger for this reality is the rooster coop. This explains how the collective working class of slaves blindly submit to the oppressive system forced upon them. They are immune to temptation and never steal anything of value from their masters, and they focus on the needs and comforts of others before their own.
When the British colonized India, they forced an inferior mentality upon the Indian peoples, convincing them that they were of less importance. This mentality directly transferred to post-colonial India. The Indian people's desires were repressed by years of slavery, psychologically altering how they behaved and resulting in a completely submissive system solely held up by honesty and trust. The entire lower class essentially has no ambition or drive to break out of this coop. This has cemented slavery into Indian society and has solidified the mentalities of the lower class. No slave to the rich will ever become anything more than just that.
In conclusion, The White Tiger serves as a post-colonial lens into the troubled country of India and displays to us the resulting effects of British colonization, which are numerous and mostly negative. Aravind Adiga presents a widened class divide, an increased crime rate, and a virus-like veil of corruption as the three most prominent impacts of colonialism on Indian society.
What should be taken away from this novel is just how lucky we are to live in a country such as Canada. None of us will ever be forced into slavery, regardless of class or familial background. Our elected officials do not need to search for bribes to subsidize their pay, and we do not need to worry about corruption in our everyday lives. Furthermore, our country is set up to reward those who work hard, not only those born into privilege. Yes, growing up in a lower-class household is still a disadvantage, however, it is far from insurmountable. Anything can be achieved by anybody. All it takes is perseverance and hard work.